Alright, in this video, I want to show you how to create a responsive color picker in Figma using variables. So, this is just a screen that just work on real quick to be able to showcase this. Then I have a sample color picker here for my button color and my background color. So by button color, I mean these colors, alright? And for my background color, I mean this color. I mean, you could probably just work on the button color, which is going to be using this color picker. Then you could have a take-home assignment to go and show me what your background color responsiveness looks like. As a bonus, I'm also going to be showing you how to also adjust your border radius. More like work on a responsive border radius, meaning that when you click on either of this arrow, it's responsive with what we have here. Right. So let me just call this a widget, right? So to make it make sense. So I have my design here, and I'm going to get started with it. Now, to understand variables, when you want to apply variables to your design and you want to make it less responsive, you need to first understand what you want to apply variables to, meaning that you need to understand the actions that you want to take. What action am I looking to take? I want to be able to click on this and have this open overlay pop up such that when I click on this blue, I want the button color here and the button color here to change. And I also want the secondary button color here to also have the same theme as the button color itself. And I want the button color code as well as to change here and here. Right, so same thing goes with when you want to now go ahead and do your background color. Then for the border radius, I want it to be that when I click on this arrow button here, this actually like changes, more like probably increases or decreases, and it is also responsive here in real time. So let's just get to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have these colors already. I'll probably just tap into them to create my variables, right? So I'll just create local variables. I'll go to local variables. The first thing I'm going to do is to create variables. So I'll start with color variables because I want to work with color switching first. Right. So color variable. I'll start with the button color. The button color, right? Which is so I'll probably just use my color picker to pick it out. So which is this, right? Then I also work on I should work on background color, but since you are working on background color, I'll probably just focus on the button color, the button color code, as well as the border radius. So I'll probably just get another variable, which is now going to be a string. The color code is going to be like a text. So when you want to, so basically in programming, string is mostly used for, let's say, like text. The number is like, let's say, active numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But the color code here is just like, let's say, a normal text. So I'll probably just use string for it. So which is going to be button color code. Right. So I'll just copy the color code here and just paste it here. Which is the current color code for the button. So I think there's a mistake here now because this has to be the same thing as this. So none of them needs to make sense. So I'll just use this and change it to this. Alright, so right. So I think there's something wrong with this color, but then we'll fix it as we go. And the next thing I'm going to do is that I want to create my secondary color. So I'll probably just I'll duplicate this and I'll name it secondary sec button color. Now what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to reduce the opacity to 20% for this color. The next thing I'm going to do is to create a variable for my border radius, right? So I'll create a variable for the border radius, which is going to be a number at this point, because when you want to adjust the border radius for anything you're working on, you use number for it. So BR, let's do it that way. So I just have 1 for now. So let's have it as 1. Right? I could say 0, but let's have it as 1 to make it make sense. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply this variable on my design. Right. So first off, I'm going to probably just select this frame. Let me just do it first. I want it to also take effect on this particular one. So I'll come here and I'm going to change it to the button color. I'll also just click on this and look for, ignore ignore it here. Let's focus on the button colors. So my button color, then this is going to be, I've already worked on this here, but I'll just add a variable to it at this point. So the secondary button color. So it's obviously the secondary button color now. So this is the secondary button color. This is the button color. You can see here. This also carries the same property as the button color variable. Then I'm also going to now apply the same variable to this text, which is the button color code. All right. So I'll come ahead and I'll come here to apply variable, and I'll make it button color code. All right. Button color code. Then I would come to this text and apply my radius, which is actually 1. So because if my radius was 2 here, this text is going to change to 2. So at the same time, I'm going to do the same thing by applying the same radius. So let me just close this to this corner here. So I'm going to just come here to apply radius, and I'll make it this. Now let's get to our interaction. Right. So what I want to happen is that I've already set this prototype to, when I click on this open overlay, right? Now I want to ensure that when I click on this blue, it changes. The color changes to, the color here changes to blue. I'll click on the blue. I'll go ahead to click on interaction. Then I'm going to set my first variable, which is when I click, right, this blue, it should set a variable for button color, right, to turn to this blue. Button color is a color variable, so when I'm setting a variable for button color to turn to this blue. So I'll probably just take this blue here to get the color code, right? So I'm just going to copy this to just keep it, because I want that to also take effect on the color code itself, like the text itself. So I'll go ahead and add an additional variable and say see when I click on this same blue here, the button color code should actually change to this. Now at this point, it's just a text, so I have to make sure that it's a string, right? So I've also, and for it to be able to have a string when you want to probably code or something, you need to put it in quotes. You can see that it's showing me what it should look like here. So I'll probably just click on this to make it make sense. So this is how it should be. Right, so meaning that when I click on this blue here, anything that shares the same property as the button color is going to change to the color of this blue, which I've actually set here. Alright, so let me just do something. Let me do the same thing on this green. Then we can now test it to see what it looks like. But what I always do is just that to be able to just edit the prototype, I'll just duplicate this blue. Right. So ignore what is happening at the moment. I'll probably just pick this green as the color for the blue. Delete this. Then I'll just copy the color code for this green. I'll go to my prototype and I made a duplicate of this blue, so it's obviously showing the same property as this. But in this case, I'll just ensure that the button color is a variable, right? So whatever. So let me give you an example of how this works. In as much as the button color itself, it looks like orange. If we set the variable for the button color to change to blue at that moment is now the button color, right? So when I set green, even though the button color is still orange here, when I set the button color to change to green, when I click on green, blue is relieved of that title of being the button color, and green now holds it. Right. So I can also change the color code here, meaning the button color code, which is like a text, to that of green. All right. So when I try to preview my prototype at this point, should I do this? No. Let's just play. So when I play my prototype here, right, I click on this and I click on this. Right, you can see the color code is actually changing. It's actually changing. Right. Now I need to also do that for this as well. Right. So I'm going to check on my variable if I made provision for that, and I think I did, which is 20% opacity. So I'm going to probably do that here. I'm going to do that here just for us to see what it looks like on the blue actually. So I'm going to add an additional I'm going to set an additional variable that says this time around secondary button color, right? This is the color code for blue. Right, there's an opacity attached to it already, so it's going to be 20% opacity. I can do the same thing for green. I mean, that's fine. So I would say set a variable. Secondary button color should change to 20% green. So when I go back to check my prototype, and let me just refresh, and I decide to check this out, the color code changes, right, and the green is also changing as well. Right. Alright, so let's get on to the border radius. So how the border radius is expected to work is that when I click on this arrow here, the border radius, which is originally 1, increases by 1. Now at the same time, this moves along with it. Right. So I'm going to apply such that when I click on this top arrow, I'm setting a variable border radius to set border radius to +1. What this means is that border radius is a variable that I've created in the first place. And I want it to be that when I click on that arrow, my border radius, which is a variable that I've already set to be 1, is going to be border radius +1. Border radius originally is 1. So for every time you click on this top arrow, your border radius at that moment is going to add 1 to it. So if I click on this now, my border radius is 1, change it to 2. That means 2 is my border radius at that moment. When I click on it again, it changes to 3 because this is +1. If this was +2 or +3, my border radius is going to just be adding 2 or 3 to it. Right. So let me show you what this is going to look like. If I go to my prototype and pay attention to this as well, to this corner. Now for every time I increase I'm increasing this, so it's adjusting, right? So it's also adjusting the border radius, right? Adjusting the border radius for every time I click on this. Now how do we reduce it, right? I need to ensure that when I click on this border radius, it's reducing and at the same time moving together with the edge here. Now in this case, it's going to be somehow different. I'm going to be setting a condition instead, right? Being that, so without a condition, if I set the variable without the condition and say, okay, when I click on this, set my corner radius to border radius to make border radius -1, right? It's going to probably set to, let me just increase it and reduce it. When it gets to 0, what happens? We are seeing -1, -2, which we do not actually want, right? So in this case, I'm going to be setting a condition. So let me just take out this. So let me just make it a condition instead. So I'll be saying if my border radius is greater than or equal to 1, meaning that if my border radius is either 1, 2, 3, or any value greater than or equal to 1, right, it should or equal to 1, right, it should then I'll set a variable to say it should -1 from that border radius, right? So I'll say, okay, variable for border radius, set border radius minus 1. And so meaning that if the border radius is in any way greater than or equal to 1, so meaning that in this case, if it's greater than or equal to 1, right, which is 13, it should set it to minus 1, right? Yeah, so greater than or equal to 1 is the only time that it should set it to minus 1. When it's 0, it stays at 0.